I don't like being correct on these things, but a federal judge says training AI on copyrighted works is fair use, but cast doubt on the use of pirated materials, which is that's kind of like an insane proposition between those two, but okay. A federal judge in San Francisco has ruled that training an AI model on copyrighted works without specific permission to do so was not a violation of copyright law. Weird. U.S. District Judge William Alsop said that AI company Anthropic could assert a fair use defense against copyright claims for training its Claude AI models on copyrighted books. But the judge also ruled that it mattered exactly how those books were obtained. Basically, it seems like the judge is adopting this kind of unclean hands theory. Like, if you're going to steal stuff and then use it to train your AI models, maybe that's not okay. Alsop supported Anthropic's claim that it was fair use for it to purchase millions of books and then digitize them for use in AI training. The judge said it was not okay, however, for Anthropic to have also downloaded millions of pirated copies of books from the internet and then maintained a digital library of those pirated copies. The judge ordered a separate trial on Anthropic's storage of those pirated books, which could determine the company's liability and any damages related to that potential infringement. The judge has also not yet ruled whether to grant the case class action status, which could dramatically increase the financial risks to Anthropic if it is found to have infringed on authors' rights. In finding that it was fair use for Anthropic to train its AI models on books written by 3 authors, Andrea Bartz, Charles Graeber, and Kirk Wallace Johnson, who had filed a lawsuit against the AI company for copyright violations, also addressed a question that has simmered since before OpenAI's ChatGPT kickstarted the generative AI boom in 2022. Can copyrighted data be used to train generative AI models without the owner's consent? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. Like, the obvious logical answer should have always been yes. Anyone who says no is crazy, because this large language models mirror a type of human learning and retention and recitation. And that is that the gathering of information and then the interpretation and interpolation of that information into either a brain or, in this case, a neural network is just how things have to occur. Like, there's no way to determine from a large language model what comes out that is derivative of the work that went in. You're taking literally millions of works and saying, all right, we're going to put all of this in, and the large language model is going to learn how to effectively communicate in different ways, as many different ways as possible, but also in the most effective and common ways possible. It's going to do that, and then it's going to generate something new from all of the collective things that it had. It's funny how, like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I seem to remember being told that I was not correct about that. Oh. That's kind of wild. So the reason I bring up the AI copyright thing is much has been said about the use of voices, images, and likeness, and the use of copyright in regards to AI generated content for Supertips specifically. You're wrong. I'm right. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change or whatever. But again, when you get into the logical process of this, you go, okay, well, it's not spitting out the book though. And you can't just determine that anything that comes subsequent to the consumption of a literary work is the product of that literary work. It's the product of the collective consumption of information that has occurred. Now, I guess if you only put in like one book ever to train the AI model, you're like, okay, I'm just going to use Stephen King's The Stand. And so then everything that comes out would be derivative of The Stand. But the second you add a second book, well, now you've intermingled the two works, and it's impossible at that point to even determine which is from one and which is from the other, coming back from the language model, right? So as you incorporate thousands to millions to eventually billions of written works, there's just no way you can possibly do it. Like, what if they just said, here's all of Twitter, incorporate all of Twitter into your large language model, and it just consumes 1 trillion tweets from the dumbest weirdos ever to the smartest people on earth, who end up kind of talking like the dumbest weirdos ever after a minute. And then you're supposed to figure out now what tweet is being regurgitated when I ask the AI a question. So I was right. Ha! Take that, you morons. Tech Guy also says, I think AI parsing images and using your likeness without permission would not be considered fair use. Bette Midler versus Ford would be a good example, as that was someone imitating her for an ad and Ford lost. Okay, we got to do this. I love you. But this is an important legal distinction that people miss. Using an image and likeness to try and fraudulently convey that someone is endorsing a product or service is wrong. Like, that is wrong. So having, trying to trick the audience into Bette Midler's endorsement of Ford is going to lose, period. Because Bette Midler didn't endorse Ford. So it's not just that they use her name, image, likeness, or whatever. It's her right of publicity. It's her right to be in control of the things that she supports. Because what if she supports Ford and then Ford runs a swastika paint job on something? Because I think she's Jewish. Oh my gosh. So let's say Ford runs a swastika hood paint job, special edition on Mustangs or whatever. And then they have Bette Midler endorsing Ford. And she's like, I wouldn't endorse that. That company is disgusting to me. Like, how can you do this? That's the problem. Using name, image, and likeness for anything else, comedy, parody, sarcasm, criticism, even just statements, as long as those statements aren't fraudulently inducing people to believe that someone is, endorsing something. But it's all in how much the listener, I guess, the audience, is supposed to or intended to believe that it's the person. And then, of course, how much they believe it is kind of evidence of how much they were intended to, right? But for example, on Supertips, if anyone's under the impression that a Supertip is generated and it's the person, like the way they come across the screen. So, and I know there's a very funny moment where when I was screaming at Keanu and I wasn't looking, that a super tip came through in Keanu's voice and I thought it was her. Yes. But of course, everybody else knew it wasn't, right? Like the audience there is not like, oh, that Keanu said that, because there's a little animated thing, there's a message on the screen, like all of this stuff happens. So no one's actually thinking. And if I had looked at it later, I would have known that wasn't her as well. No one's duped there. I'm duped in the moment, but that was my own uncontrollable rage or whatever that did that. So, but in general, the super tip system isn't being used as a legitimate endorsement from someone's voice. Like no one's like, if I have the Jesse Lee Peterson voice say, hey, listen, I need you to watch the Nick Rekieta show, Rekieta Law, because he's good people. Like if I had it say that, no one believes that Jesse Lee Peterson is like calling into the show and doing that. That's not how it works. There's just so many indicators that that's not the case. Also, we talk about it. It's a complicated subject. And the only frustrating thing for me is seeing a bunch of fellow lawyers talk about it incorrectly because they have some personal reason for their answer. And look, you can say that I have personal reasoning because of my use of super tips or whatever. But I had the same position on, it wasn't AI, but I had the same position on name, image, and likeness and the right of publicity ever since the beginning of this channel, because I encountered it right away with the Dick Masterson lawsuit and Maddox saying, like, you can't use a picture of me. And the picture was Maddox being made fun of on a poster advertising one of Dick's live shows. And Maddox like, you can't do that. You can't. I didn't give you permission for that. It's like, well, you don't need permission to make fun of someone like that, because that doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, hey, can I make fun of you? Can I just shit all over you on this poster? Is that okay? No? Oh, well, damn. And so I encountered this problem and did a bunch of research on it early on in the YouTube show because of the Dick and Maddox lawsuit. So I've read a lot about it. And the law is pretty consistent and pretty clear and has been through decades and decades and decades of celebrity voices being used. And if the celebrity voice is being used for an endorsement, the company loses. If the celebrity voice is not being used for an endorsement, the company wins, or the user wins, and the celebrity loses at that point. So, and this hasn't changed. Like, the law on this has been steady for a really long time. And the distinctions where you do find a quote unquote inconsistent result are always so distinguishable from the original, because there's no endorsement. There's no positive statement about some person or company that's being foisted upon the listening or reading audience. And what was it? Dior versus Onassis versus Christian Dior, New York. This is one of the cases that is, all about this concept. And this was, 1984, for example. So, I mean, this thing's almost as old as I am. And that's not the first case. And you have Bette Midler, you have a couple other lawsuits where this happened, where they either they hired an impersonator because they didn't have AI, right? But I think the tip for people on this is to really just look at AI as a tool or an instrument of an impersonator. And it makes people really good at impersonations. And that's fine. But how you use that impersonation that's the important thing. Being good at impersonations and impressions, even making money off of them, is not wrong. There have been impersonation and impression comedians who've been successful forever and have very successful careers, and they make tons and tons of money doing specifically those impressions, right? Like, that happens. I think everybody's aware of this. You can watch them. You can watch people do impressions and make money doing it all the time. And that's fine. AI just makes, it levels the playing field behind people who can do it naturally and people who can't. In the same way that AI levels the playing field between people who have a natural gift of art and people who don't. Like, I can't draw anything, but I have a vision of what I want to see on paper, and I can ask the AI to help me draw it, and it becomes a really effective paintbrush. Well, it's the same thing with voices. Now, if I ask it to recreate the Mona Lisa and then be like, this is mine, I guess Da Vinci's estate could sue me or whatever. But you get the concept, right? Like, if I'm trying to pass off a work as someone else's and I have the AI do it in that way, well, then, yeah, case by case, it becomes copyright infringement. You can like, he intended to do this. Look at the prompt he said he did. I want people to think this is from, I don't know, name a modern artist. But like, that's not what most people are doing. Most people are just making art in a different way with a new tool.